This a Patriots party. Hey, we pit America first. This a Patriots
Donald
party.
J. Trump. It's an easy answer.
Abortion. These are real issues that we are dealing with.
Death started to throw a house party on Friday. Death threw a block party on Saturday. But early Sunday morning, Mom got up. I say this because I want you to understand.
I took my notes, and then that's what you need to know. I took my notes.
I'm not on the fence, I don't lean. I get a new hater every time my phone ring. I'm hated by the world, but that means that I'm blessed. I keep it real and I let God handle the rest.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Patriots Den podcast. We got a lot to talk about. And the topic, I'm not sure if y'all looked at what the title is, but the title today is Blind Watchmen and Dumb Dogs. Blind Watchmen and Dumb Dogs. I want to read you a Bible verse that was recently brought to my attention. I want to read this to you. It's Isaiah 56:10. Isaiah 56:10. And it says, his watchmen are blind. They are all ignorant. They are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark, sleeping, lying down, loving to slumber. Loving to slumber. Today I want to take a basis out of the Bible and also convert it into the political world of which we see today. Because we are seeing in the movement, Republicans, Democrats, and specifically in the church, so many people want motivational speakers and not enough truth speakers. Well, I'm going to shift that narrative up just a bit. I'm not going to be here to be a motivational speaker today. That's not what I'm here to do, and that's not what I'm going to do. I have 3 Bible verses that I'm going to pin everything to, right? I'm going to back everything up with 3 Bible verses. And I'm going to lay out the spectrum that we are seeing this nation slowly turn to and how we can fix it. First, I want to start with dumb dogs. Many of us act like the dumb dogs, right? Sleeping, lying down, loving to slumber, putting things off. What does that have to do with me? Why should I be worried about that now? And it's constantly put off. What does that have? Well, I'm not that. I can vote on that next year. Oh, I can't vote now. Right? There's this list of excuses that people have simply so they don't have to put themselves in the position or in the forefront. Many people want to be in the forefront, but they don't want the truth of the forefront. Right? They don't want the reality of the forefront. I want to read this verse to you as well. We're still in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah 30:10, and it says, which say to the seers, see not, and to the prophet, prophecy not unto us, right things, speak unto us smooth things, prophecy deceits. Right? Seers see not. Prophets prophesied not unto us right things, but speak unto us smooth things. So many people want the easy way out of it. Don't give me the cold, hard truth. Give me the nice, easy way out of this. Give this to me in a way where I can still sleep easy at night. Don't hurt my feelings. I don't want to be offended. And so many times we have people who don't want to offend anyone. They don't want to be bought into that idea of offending anyone. So they want you to say what's nice. They don't want you to say the truth. See, the church today is afraid of offending people. The politics today, they're afraid of offending people. Well, you can't say that just yet. We don't want you to hurt anyone's feelings. We don't want you to do this. We don't want you to do that. Right? And they want those motivational speakers that are going to say, it's okay. Be you. Do this. Do that. We'll worry about the consequences when they get here. Because they don't want to handle it now. It's put off. And it's continuously put off. And now we're at a point now where it's been put off so long that even if the topic was to come up, there are certain things that we just don't know how to respond to. Immigration, for example. Immigration was a topic that was put off for so long that now the political spectrum has sat down and said, you know what? There is no clear-cut answer to immigration. So we'll just kind of deal with it as it happens. Why? Because they want to go lay down. They want to sleep. They don't want to actually put in the work and the accountability that it takes to fill the job, because that's too much. Right? They are dumb. They cannot bark, sleeping, lying down, and loving to slumber. They don't want to do the actions. The church is now at a point where it is afraid to call sin, sin. Because, we don't want to offend anyone. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Right? But when do we, as the watchmen, we're going to get to them in a minute and dive a bit deeper into the term watchmen. When do the watchmen stand up and say, you know what? This isn't right. And that I'm going to tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. I'm going to tell you what needs to be said. I'm going to explain it and break it down in a way that needs to be explained and broken down. When are we going to be able to keep it real? When are we going to be able to keep it like it is? Right? Why is it that we have put ourselves in a situation where we say, prophesied not? Why do we put ourselves in that? Seers, see not. Right? For example, look at some of the biggest name preachers in the industry right now when it comes to the church. And listen to some of their sermons. Their sermons are not calling out the sin in the world. Their sermons are sending you to a nice hell. Right? They're trying to send you to a nice hell. They're trying to be motivational speakers instead of actually being the truth speaker in the church. Because they want to slumber, they want to sleep, and they don't want to deal with the combat necessary when the time does come, when all hands on deck are needed. They don't want to be the ones put in the corner of having to deal with that. That's just not them. That's not who they are. That is not the situation that they want to be put in. And the problem is a lot of politicians are doing the exact same thing, going back and bending and changing history so it can fit their present and what they want it to be in the present. I just put out something like that on Facebook. They want to change reality and make it softer because right now it's too offensive to people. Jesus wouldn't have been offensive. Jesus didn't offend anyone. That's what they say. And so they want the seers to see not. Prophets prophesied only good things. We know that there are going to be difficult days ahead. We look at the interest rate in the United States of America just went up by a lot. Right? It didn't go up by a little. It went up by a lot. A nice number. But don't tell us that. Tell us the good part. Tell us the good stuff. Tell us the good things that are going to happen. Don't tell us that the interest rate's going up. We don't want to hear that just now. We're not ready for that. Because they cannot bark and they want to sleep, lie down, and slumber. Sleep, lie down, and slumber. Those are the three for the dumb dogs. Who have every right not to be dumb. They have every right to want to hear the truth. They have every right to want to be educated on the subject. They have every right to go out and try to get what they want, yet they choose not to. That is a personal decision that they make within themselves that say, we don't want to do this. Right? We don't want to take that route. Amos, one of the prophets, right? One of the prophets, he came and he said, before Jesus put in a famine, he was talking to the people and he said, this is what's going to happen. Right? Because you have the dumb dogs, you have the ones who want, but there are people who want it. There are people who want to hear the truth. There are people who want to be educated. There are people who are willing to go out. If you look in the book of Amos, chapter 8, verse 12, he said, and they shall wander from sea to sea, and from north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, and they shall find not. And shall not. It says they won't find it. There will be a day where there will be people who really want to see the truth, who really want to be in for a treat, hear the truth of the word of God, hear the truth of the political spectrum, hear the truth of society. They are willing to call a sin a sin. They're willing to determine right from wrong, and they are okay with this idea of being judgmental because they know that if ye not judge, right? You say, well, who am I to judge? Who am I to determine what is good or bad? You're not. It has already been set in stone of what is good and what is bad. Your job is to now emphasize, hey, it says here that this is bad, or hey, it says here that this is good. The book of Amos says that they will be wandering from the east to the west, from sea to sea, to try to find the truth. Because they're scared. They want to know what is going on. And they will travel to try to get the truth. And there will not be any. They won't find it. Why? Because seers see not. And prophets prophesize only good things. They are setting it up for a drastic failure in the system. Right? We see that. They're setting it up for a drastic failure due to the fact that we don't want anyone to be offended. Right? I want to take a look at Matthew now. This is the last verse, and then we can really just dive into this thing. The book of Matthew, chapter 15, starting at verse 12. This is after Jesus gave the sermon. Starting at verse 12, they say, then came his disciples, talking about Jesus, his disciples. Then came his disciples and said unto him, knowest thou that the Pharisees were offended after they heard this saying? But he answered and said, every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted up. Let them alone. We're getting into the watchmen. Watch this. They be blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. Then answered Peter and said unto him, declare us into this parable. And Jesus said, are ye also yet without understanding? Do not ye yet understand that whatsoever entereth in the mouth goes into the belly and is cast out into the draught? Watch this, watch this. This is what I love about this particular one right here. Because Jesus offends the Pharisees Jesus offends the Pharisees. Pharisees mean being separated of. The Pharisees were preachers of the church. The Pharisees were literally out there to spread the word of God. But when Jesus himself delivered the true message, they were offended by it. Wow. The ones who were sent to do the works of him were offended by him. So now we break it down and we say, look at some of the politicians that we have. They are offended by the Constitution. Even though they took an oath to uphold the Constitution, they themselves are offended by that same Constitution. They're offended by that same Constitution. And they're the ones who took an oath to do so. Watch this. Jesus said, let them alone. They be blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. When you have a blind watchman, for two is accidentally blind, or two or one is purposefully blind, purposefully covering his eyes so he doesn't see the bad of which is in front of him, right? Then they will purposely fall into the ditch. When we have politicians who are standing in the podium, Republicans standing up in the podium, and they can't tell you what a woman is, that is the blind leading the blind, if you cannot determine what a life is. There are politicians who can't tell you when life begins. Them and everyone who agrees with them will fall into the ditch because they are blind leading the blind, trying to sugarcoat the truth so that they, the listeners outside, won't be able to determine it. If the seers see not, and the prophets prophesies only good things. Isn't that what he said? It is easier for people to preach against each other than it is for people to preach about the truth and against a lie. It is easier for me to get online and argue with you all day and call you a hypocrite, call you racist, call you this, call you that, than it is for me to sit down and get on here and tell you facts. It's easier for me to throw stones at you than it is to go and carve my own story within a stone. Right? You have people who come and they say, well, I don't want to judge anyone. I don't want to offend anyone. So I when it comes to like abortion, I kind of stay to myself. I don't really have an opinion on that. I believe you can do what you want to do. But as soon as I come in and I say, this is my truth, I don't think you should have an abortion, I don't think you should do this. As soon as I start preaching my own facts, that same one who said, oh, I don't want to judge, they start to preach against me by saying, oh, you don't have a right to determine. You're racist. You're this. You're that. Right? They say, who am I to judge, while at the same time judging me and those who speak the truth. Simply because I don't agree. Because I don't agree, it is now my duty and my diligence. It makes no sense. They can't align a story. And Jesus, then he tells them, Jesus tells the disciples, every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be uprooted. Everything that is in a place where it is not supposed to be shall be uprooted. Well, what is my modern day example of that? Liz Cheney, a woman who put herself, right, on this idea of being a constitutional conservative Republican. When the truth was put out, she came and she turned on Donald Trump. Joined the January 6th committee, right, and made it her due diligence to make sure Trump never touched Oval Office. She made two mistakes. One, it is not your job to make sure that Donald Trump never touches Oval Office. That is above you. You have no say in that. But two, she then tried to defend her own lies by getting her father involved, who said, we won't judge him. We love him. But at the same time, they called him a coward. They did all this. They were not planted in their beliefs and therefore rooted up. In that case, she got primaried. Put y'all over here because the sun is a little bright. She got primaried because she was not meant to be there. Therefore, she was uprooted. The Bible, it shows that there are people who have no reason to be offended, but yet they are offended. And the Pharisees were the main ones offended. Pharisee meaning separated. Pharisee, they were the ones that were doing the teaching. Why is it that the teacher is offended by his own curriculum? Why is the teacher offended by his own truth? Why is the teacher offended by which he has been saying this entire time? That's as if somebody came out and wrote everything I've said on here. And they came out and they came to me and they told me that there are blind watchmen and dumb dogs and you can't be one of them. And I say, oh, how could you? I'm offended by that. But at the same time, I'm the one who put the message out there. Right? Their job was to preach from the Bible. And as soon as someone came and preached from the Bible, they were offended by it. You have politicians who took an oath on the Constitution, but as soon as you start using the Constitution as your ally, as soon as you start using the Constitution as your weapon to defend you, they are the ones who are now offended. Why are you offended by your own teachings? Why are you offended by the thing that you swore to uphold? Jesus said, do not ye yet understand that whatever is entered in at the mouth goes into the belly? It's done easy. I just want to read some of the stuff that Jesus said. What made Jesus so offensive? He said, ye hypocrites, well did Esau's prophecy of you, saying that this people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. They were offended by that. How dare you? Politicians draweth in people with their mouth, honor you with their lips, but a politician's heart, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, it's far from the people. They're not actually in there to help us, but they talk the good talk. And because he told them that you are far from me, that offended them. Because they are the ones who made the choice to live in vain. When you have people who accept a position yet live in that position in vain, of course they're going to be offended. They're not going to be able to have what needs to be done. Right here. Matthew Henry. Right? I'm not sure if you all are aware of who Matthew Henry was. But Matthew Henry said, they bark at God's prophets, bite them, and worried the sheep, but made no opposition to the wolf or the sheep. Why did they not make opposition to the sheep? Because the sheep just need someone to lead. And as soon as you take that lead, the sheep are lost. The sheep are like dumb dogs. And why didn't they show opposition to the wolf? Well, because the wolf is their friend. Right? The wolf, is a seer who won't see. The wolf is the prophet who only prophesied nice things. The wolf wants to butter you up and get you on the good side and bring you into the den so there it can eat. But the true prophets, the watchmen who can see, the dogs who don't want to slumber, they are the ones who will tell someone your heart is far from him. Your intentions are ill intent, right? Those are those people who have no problem with being truthful, who have no problem with not breaking the idea of truth. They will call a spade a spade. Yet so often people don't want to judge, right? So now I ask, when you judge someone, isn't that what God wanted? When God gave us a right from wrong, right? When God gave you a right from wrong, and you see someone committing right from wrong, and you say, oh, that's wrong, is that not judging? When you see someone and you discriminate, is that not judging? I am all for the idea of having to discriminate. But here's the problem. Whenever someone hears the word discrimination, what is the first thing they're going to run to? Race. Discrimination of race. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the discrimination of race. Watch. I'm talking about the discrimination of right and wrong. I'm talking about holding people who do wrong to a standard of wrong by letting them know that you are ye set aside because of your wrongdoing. Ye are set aside because of your wrongdoing. That's discrimination. When you call someone out and say you're doing wrong, that's the discrimination there. That is the judging part that so many people don't want to do. And when you tell someone, I'm not going to judge you because of what you do, you just put them in a category to be judged. You're judging even when you tell someone, I'm not going to judge you. That's a judgment. You know that whatever I do, it might not be best. So I'm just going to tell them I'm not going to judge them. Right? Because the world hates the truth. The world hates it. And so when you tell a person, seers see not, I don't think it can get any clearer than that. Seers see not. Because they don't want you to know the truth. Even back then, the Bible, they didn't want them to know the truth then. They sure don't want you to know the truth now, and they're not going to want you to know the truth later. So why not learn it now? Because no matter what day and age it is, they're not going to necessarily tell you the truth. Whatever that truth may be, whatever topic that truth may be on, they're not going to tell you. It is not within their ranking to tell you. It is not within their interest to tell you. Right? Jesus offended the Pharisees, the preachers. You're going to offend people. Jesus offended people. I offend people. Even if you do not mean to offend someone, you are going to offend someone. That's just how it works. Everyone is going to be offended by every little thing. And so that is why you might as well. The Bible says, right, that if the watchman does not sound the alarm, then the blood of the people is on the watchman. Right? I don't want to get to heaven. And he says, did you tell my people? And I say, well, God, no, I didn't tell them that lying was a sin because I didn't want to offend the liar. God, I didn't tell the murderer that murdering was a sin because I didn't want to offend the murderer. God, I didn't tell the adulterer that adultery was a sin because I didn't want to offend the adulterer. Right? I don't want to go there. I don't want the blood to be on my hands. When I get there, I'm going to say, God, I told them. I called a spade, I called a sin. It was up to them to listen. Back then, you had a watchman, and whenever trouble was coming, he would blow the horn, and no matter what was happening, they'd stop what they're doing, and they would do whatever is necessary to fix or fight the trouble that was coming in. Whether a military army was storming at their city, the watchman would blow his arm. I don't care if you were at a funeral or a wedding, you would stop what you're doing to combat that. And then the king would come up to the watchman and say, did you do your job? King, I told him the army was coming. I blew the horn. They said that, oh, well, there's this happening. Oh, well, there's that. And they didn't want to answer to the call, but I gave the call. So whatever happens there is out of my hands. It is on them. It is on, and I have nothing to do. I am innocent. I did what I needed to do. And that's what God gives us, a watchman. He says, go about my father's business. Well, God, I went across your father's business, but I didn't tell people evil is evil because I didn't want to offend the evil man that lives in the dark castle on the dark hill. I didn't want to do that. So I didn't. I didn't tell I didn't tell my neighbor that was sleeping with everybody up and down the street that they were wrong because I didn't want to offend them. I didn't. God, please. I was too busy worried about what was going to happen to me fleshly within that moment or situation that I completely forgot, and my worries about what was going to happen in the end completely left my mind because I was too busy seeking another man's approval of something that is going to return back into the dust of which it came. Is that the excuse you're going to use? Because that's where we're heading. We're heading into a place where so many people want the approval of everybody that they don't go about the Father's business. Everybody wants to be everybody's friend. That's the problem. Everybody feels as if they have to succumb to the mob. I don't care about the mob, right? So I'm telling you now, it's easier for them to preach against the preacher than it is for them to do the preaching. And that's what they're going to want, to take that easy way out. But you have to stand strong. You have to stay on the path of which you are on, continue to walk, not worry about what people from the outside are saying. Because they're throwing out of a glass house. And I tell you now, when they throw out, the house breaks. It breaks. And they realize, wait, I've been trying to please a bunch of people who don't care about me. When push comes to shove and I have to stand in front, they're not going to care about me. So why am I trying to succumb to them? Especially trying to succumb to something that you know is wrong. That's what we got to fight. Go against. Jesus, he said, it goes into the mouth and sits in the belly and is out by the drought. The question is, are we going to let that sizzle in the spirit? Right? Are we going to allow that to just sit there? Are we going to be able to be the ones who stand up and say, enough is enough? You can hate me. You can call me a racist. You can call me a bigot, a homophobe. You can call me every word in the book that you got. A Oreo, Uncle Tom, sellout. You can call me every word in the book. But at the end of the day, no matter what word you call me, no matter what you throw at me, it does not prosper, because what you're doing may hurt the flesh, but the flesh is not what's going to be here all the time. It's the spirit. Right? I'm going to look at you the same. I'm going to treat you the same. But at the same time, I'm going to judge on the basis of action. They make it seem Jesus hung out with the prostitute. Jesus hung out with the tax collector. 100%. Jesus sat down with the tax collector. Jesus sat down with the prostitute. And then he told him, what you're doing is wrong. I'm not gonna hate you all your life for, but what you're doing is wrong. You need to fix it. Jesus went into the temple and he said, what is this? No, not at all. He started flipping tables. He made a belt, a whip out of leather, and started beating them out because my Father's house is not a place of business. What is this? That's where we are. Yes, I will gladly sit down with you who differs in my opinion. I'm going to tell you my opinion on it. I'm going to tell you the facts on it and whether who's right or who's wrong. And then after that, we can go and maybe have dinner somewhere. But guess what? At least I told you. So when it's brought back to me, did you tell? Of course, I told them. But it was up to them on how they wanted to live their life afterwards. It was all up to them of how they wanted to walk after that. I was not a blind watchman, and I sure wasn't a dumb dog, because the dumb dog only sleeps. The dumb dog loves to slumber, so the dumb dog puts everything off until later. Whether he has ill intent, good or bad intent, he puts everything off later. The blind watchman lives in darkness simply because he knows the bad is coming. He sees the bad is coming, but he turns a blind eye and becomes a blind watchman because he doesn't want to offend anyone. He doesn't want to hurt anyone. That's what happened. And we are living in that day now where the watchman is too blind to see. The dog is too dumb to bark. Whoever would have thought that? The dog sees the wolf coming. The dog sees the bear coming for the sheep, but he's too tired. I'll do it when they get a little closer. And before you know it, they're right in front of you, and by the time you bark, it's too late. Because the dumb dog loves to... Don't be a dumb dog. Don't be the person that waits till it's too late. And don't be the blind watchman who just says it's not real. It's not going to happen. And then when it does happen, you're shocked. You're flabbergasted. You're put back. And they say, where were you when it was time to stand up? Where were you when it was time to save your country? Where were you when it was time to fight back against the demons of this world? Where were you? And you say, well, I didn't see it coming. Don't be that watchman that didn't see it coming. And because of you, millions, thousands now lay rest. Don't be that guy. Be the one who says, I saw it coming. I told everybody it was coming. Some listened, some didn't. Some said, wait, I got this happening. It doesn't matter. And some of you may say, well, I don't want to be the blind. I don't want to be the watchman. I don't want to be the dog. I want to be the sheep. I want to be the one that's in the pasture and I'll wait. Okay. You can 100% do that. Get you a good watchman. Get you someone who, when they say it's time to go, you go. But there are two kinds of sheep. There's the fat sheep, full. And then there's the shaved sheep, active, moving around. The Bible tells a story of a watchman who warns his people and says, they're coming. But when he blew the horn, there was a wedding going on. And the people said, wait, it's a wedding. We can't leave now. We'll wait later. So he stayed at the wedding. Some people said, oh no, wedding's over. We got to go. So they leave the wedding. But there were the few that stayed at the wedding. They're the ones who weren't ready. They're the ones who suffered. They're the ones who didn't have what it took to fight back because they waited too late. Because they weren't willing to put aside the right now to handle what was coming. You have to be on your all 10 toes. You have to be ready for anything at any time, no matter which way it's coming at you. You got to be ready to fight it back. No matter what you're in the midst of doing, you got to sometimes say, I am ready, God. God, I am here. I see what's coming at me. I am blowing the horn. I am letting my people know that it is time to wake up. They choose to be asleep like the dumb dog, but I myself am standing right here in the midst. I myself have put myself on the front line, and whatever you have, devil, throw it at me. Whatever you have, Russia, throw it at me. Democrats, whatever you, throw it at me. Rhinos, throw it at, whatever you got. Throw it at me, because I am not a blind watchman. I am seeing. I am here. I am not a dumb dog who can't even bark and all they want to do is slumber. I am a man who is standing up, ready for whatever is coming my way. I am one who wants to speak truth. I am the one who will fight the opposition and not bite the prophet. I am the one who is willing to travel from sea to sea, willing to listen to what needs to be said in order to do what needs to be done, while at the same time making sure that anything not planted by him is uprooted in his name. Right? Isn't that what he told the disciples? You have to be someone who says that I will not be blind, led by the blind. Because when the blind are led by the blind, where do they end up? In the ditch. The blind, led by the blind, end up in the ditch. I'm not ready for the ditch. I don't want to fall into the ditch. I got somewhere I want to be. I got things I want to do, people I want to see, things that motivate me and get me. There's something else in the atmosphere that must be shifted, and I can't sit and wait. I got to go now. I'm not the guy that's going to wait on someone to tell me, well, we can go now. I want to be the watchman, the one watching, the one fighting, making sure that what needs to be done is done for the better of him. Right? I don't want to be the one that draweth nigh unto him with my mouth and honor him with my lips, but my heart is far from him. You talk the good talk. Right? When they see you in public, you're dressed up in the finest suit, driving the nicest car, living in the biggest house, but behind closed doors, when you get in that big house that they see, there's a little closet in the back, and that's where you are. Not ready. Your heart is far from it. You live far from what you say. That's not me. I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the one that's on the front, fighting and ready. My lips honor him and my heart is close to him. Right? The Bible goes on and says, for out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, blasphemies. That's for all the people who like to say, oh, God knows my heart. If you've heard somebody come up to you and be like, oh, God knows my heart, type that in the chat. Say amen in the chat if you've heard someone say, God knows my heart. Yeah, you're right, he does. In verse 19, he knows your heart. In verse 19, he tells me exactly what's going on in your heart. In verse 19, he tells you murders, adulteries, fornications, theft, false witnesses, and blasphemies. That's what's in your heart. God knows my heart. He sure does. The heart is the most deceitful thing. If we continue reading, he says, these are the things which defile a man. But to eat with unwashed hands defieth not a man. Then Jesus went thence and departed into the coast of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out the same coast and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with the devil. What did I tell you? They will come from sea to sea, east to west, to hear the word and to get cured. Here's this woman saying, my daughter's vexed with the devil. Now, this is one of my favorite miracles that Jesus works. Watch it. He says, but he answered her not a word. He didn't say anything to the woman. Look what Jesus does. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she crieth after us. But he answered and said, I am not sent unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Right? Then came, she worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and saying, It is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it to the dogs. Then Jesus answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith, be it unto thee even thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. That's what I love right there. That is the he comes, Jesus comes to her and says nothing. And he looks at his disciples and he says, throw bread not to the dogs if it belongs to a child. And then he comes and he tells the woman, he said, your faith is so big that I don't have to know your daughter's name. I don't have to touch your daughter. I don't have to see your daughter. But because of your strong faith, your daughter is now healed. Some of us got to be like that today. Our faith has to be so strong that we don't even have to cry out the problem. All we got to say is Jesus. Our nation has been vexed with an evil. Jesus, our home has been vexed with an evil. He doesn't even have to come through. He said, your faith, woo, unto thee even now faith, be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole. Even though her faith was strong, but she was still crying. She was still sad. She was still heartbroken. She was still showing the emotions, but because her faith was so strong, okay? Because her faith was so strong, the daughter was made whole. And Jesus departed from thence and came nigh unto the Sea of Galilee and went up to the mountain and sat down there. And great multitudes came up to him, having them those that were lame, blind, dumb, maimed, and many others. Jesus heals this woman's daughter and travels away. This goes back, right? This goes back to the book of Amos, where Amos said they will travel from sea to sea, east to west. Jesus goes, he preaches to the Pharisees, right? Jesus preaches to the Pharisees. The Pharisees get offended by Jesus preaching. The Pharisees get offended by Jesus preaching. And then he leaves the Pharisees while they're offended. A woman comes up to him. He says, woman, your faith is so strong that your daughter is already healed. He leaves the woman and the lame, blind, dumb, and maimed, and many others, and cast them down at Jesus' feet, and he healed them. He offended the Pharisee, heals the woman's daughter, goes across the sea. They come to him and lie at his feet, and he heals all of them. And so much that the multitude wondered when they saw the dumb to speak. Jesus made the dumb speak, the maimed to be whole, the lame to walk. He came and he started working all these miracles right after he offended the Pharisees. The Pharisees are still offended. They're still stuck in there. But he says, if a tree be planted not by my Father, it shall be uprooted. Yes, we're going to offend some people, but at the same time, we got to have some faith. Some faith that once we leave there and walk across, we have something in us that makes people want to come and say, how? How'd you make it out? How did you make it through? Why do you stand strong in such hard times? And they glorified the God of Israel. They glorified him. After he offended them, after he healed them, after they glorified him, then Jesus called his disciples unto him and said, I have compassion on the multitude, because they continue with me now 3 days and have nothing to eat. And I will not send them away fasting, lest they faint in the way. And his disciples said to him, Whence should we have so much bread in the wilderness, as to fill so great a multitude? And Jesus saith unto them, How many loaves have ye? And they said, 7, and a few little fish. That's when Jesus feeds the multitude. See, you see how the stories, they align? Why do they align so much? Because Jesus, for 3 days straight, is preaching and healing, preaching and healing, preaching and healing. And the people are starting to turn away from the Pharisee. The people are no longer bowing down to the Pharisees. Pharisees meaning separated from. That's what we got to do in this Patriot walk. We have to stop bowing down to the Pharisees in Washington. Start preaching amongst ourselves, showing each other the healing power, showing each other the working powers. Right? And once ye does that, they turn away. Other people will slowly start to turn away from the Pharisees. People will slowly start to turn away from the people in Washington, and they will bow down to the God of Israel. And they will say, wow, this God of theirs that they speak of, this God that they worship, he's something else. He's true. And they too will wander as a group of the multitude. And they too will be successful. I see you, Mercy. They too will be successful. They too will march like none has ever seen. But that's where we got to get to. We have got to turn people away from the Pharisees of Washington and turn them towards the God of Israel. Because that's what he did. And to make matters better, he offended them right before it. And he told them, your heart is far from me. And that's when they went chattering within themselves, offended by it. Well, guess what? When the people of this nation turn to Washington, D.C., and tell the people in Washington, D.C., that your hearts, your intentions are far from the American people. And then we leave and we start giving our own messages to each other, saying that our faith is so big that it works on its own. That's when you see change. That's when you can see an eruption. That's when you can see some shaking. But we got to first tell Washington, your heart is far from us. We have to first offend them because they will be offended. And as soon as we continue our walk, we can turn away, walk away, and we can face and look at something a lot bigger, paint an even bolder picture, right? If you keep reading down in the book of Matthew, he feeds the multitude right after. He offends them, then he feeds them. Because some of the Pharisees follow. He offends them, heals some different ones, and then he feeds the multitude. And then chapter 16 comes around. Chapter 16 says, the Pharisees also with Sadducees came and tempting desired him that he would shew them a sign from heaven. So after the Pharisees got offended, they went to Jesus and said, if you are who you say you are, give us a sign from heaven. Right? Prove to us that you say you are who you say you are. Politicians do the same thing. They come up to us and say, if you believe that you truly have the power, prove to us you got that much power. Prove to us that you are tired. And then they get voted out. Liz Cheney did the same thing. Liz Cheney, prove to me And when she lost, she started to compare herself to Abraham Lincoln because we proved her. When the people don't want you, the people don't want you. And so just like they told Jesus to show a sign from heaven, the rhinos, the Republic, they tell the voters, show a sign that you are the voice that you say you are. And the moment they start asking that, that's when you get out and you vote. Joe Biden says MAGA Republicans are a threat to democracy. Well, guess what? MAGA Republicans are going to flood the polls, and we're going to vote red in 2022. We're going to vote even redder in 2024, and we're going to take back the Congress, the House, and the Senate, and we're going to take back that beautiful White House, and we're going to show him a sign that he's been begging for a long time. Like at his State of the Union when he said, we the people is the government. No, you're not. But we the people are going to show you a lot better than we can tell you in this upcoming November. We the people are going to tell you a lot better than we can show you, right? In November of 2024. When you no longer have a job, Nancy Pelosi, as Ted Cruz says, gets on the SS Broom, flies back to California, hoping her husband doesn't pick her up from the airport. And we will then see who we the people are. Right? You want a sign so bad? Well, I'll give it to you. Right? Just as Jesus did to the Pharisees, I will do to you. I'm going to offend you, prove to you I'm right, and then when you come to me, ask, we're going to give it to you just like you asked. We're going to give them everything they asked for in the way that they asked for it. It's just not going to be according to their plan. And I'm going to feel bad. I'm going to say, oh, when Nancy Pelosi realizes she's no longer Speaker of the House, right? And Joe Biden realizes that he can no longer raise those interest rates because he clearly can't handle inflation. We got to show them a sign that we, the people, are fed up. We, the people, are done with the foolishness. And that we, the people, are on a mission to build back a lot better than before Biden was in office. That's a slogan, build back better, right? So, Biden, we thank you for the opportunity to build back better because we're about to. We're about to build back better a whole lot more by getting you out. We're going to build back a lot better when we get Republican majority in both houses of Congress. We already got in the Supreme Court, and we're going to show you how a real nation is supposed to lead. We're going to show the world globally once again why we are the world's first and only option. We're going to show you that location means absolutely nothing. We're going to do it. And they know we're going to do it. That is why they fight so hard to make sure we don't. That is why they fight so hard to make sure that we don't see what we need to see. But I got news for them. It is hard to silence a group of angry Republicans. We're going to show them better than we can tell you, just like Jesus did. Wasn't God good tonight? Wasn't the Lord all right? I think God spoke tonight and he shed a light on how the Pharisees may think they have won, but in reality, God wins. God wins tonight. And we're going to show them that in 2022 and in 2024, what a bunch of Christians can do, what a bunch of so-called threats to democracy can do. When we're all joined together on one idea, one mission, and that's to build back better. We're going to get Biden out of office. We're going to get Nancy Pelosi back to California. We're going to send Chuck Schumer back to New York. That's what we're about to do. That's what we're about to do. I want to thank you all for tuning in. It was lovely tonight. It was lovely tonight. It's no longer time for us to be blind watchmen and dumb dogs and say we're going to stand up, right? We're not going to sleep away the problems, and we're not going to turn a blind eye to problems just because we're afraid of what can offend someone. Right? We're not scared of that. We're going to show them what needs to be done and how to do it. Right? We're going to show these new motivational pastors that are in the church that we don't want motivational speakers. We want truth speakers in the church. We want someone who's going to call a woman a woman. We want people who are going to call sin a sin. That's what we're looking for. Right? Tonight we had to bring out 3 Bibles. It was a lot tonight. Right? It was a lot tonight. We had to bring out all 3, but that's okay. That's okay. Next week, we're going to continue diving into the book of Matthew because it explains how Jesus proves the Pharisees wrong. How Jesus proves the Pharisees wrong. And I think that's important. And we're going to show them how we can prove them wrong. Right? And we're going to prove that no matter who is in office, no matter who the president is, when it's time to go, it's time to go. Right? When it's time to kick the bucket a little further down the road, it's time to kick the bucket a little further down the road. And that's what we're going to do. I hope y'all are ready for it. Facebook, YouTube, I love you. I love you, Facebook. I love you, YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. Blind Watchmen and Dumb Dogs. Right? Study to show thyself approved. Next week, we got a lot more coming for you. YouTube, Facebook. Thank y'all so much. Instagram, I'll be right there with